call this meeting of the Johnson City City Commission to order for April the 7th, 2022. We're meeting in the Commission chambers of the Municipal and Safety Building. And with that call to order, I'll invite Pastor Tommy Hood from Central Baptist Church to come and lead our invocation, if you'll all stand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shall we pray? Gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight asking your blessings upon this meeting. We thank you for providing the resources that we have, and we ask you to give us the wisdom that we need to be good stewards of them. We pray for our city commissioners tonight, that you would give them wisdom and guidance as they seek to lead and provide the services that they do to our community. We ask you to bless them for the sacrifices that they make in order to make Johnson City a better place to live and to work. And whatever differences of opinion we may have, we pray that we would always have a unity of spirit. And we ask all of this in the strong name of our risen Lord, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
If you'll turn and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Normally watch these meetings at home, you know this would customarily be the point in the meeting where we do proclamations. We don't have any proclamations to do in the meeting, but today has been a day that we had some guests here at City Hall and through the day at city facilities from Science Hill as a part of our Gov All Out Day involving some seniors and a junior or two from Science Hill. We had about 24 students that got to spend the day with us, and I want to just invite them up because this is exactly what they were expecting when we told them to come to this meeting. I'm going to invite them up for just a minute. We have spent the day with them reviewing, and Keisha's going to help them remember who they are. Touring facilities and meeting the various departments in the city, and it's been a real privilege and pleasure. The commission got to spend several hours with them this afternoon, and I'm going to invite each of them, and I'm sorry to do this to you because you're closest, but I'm going to hand you the mic first, so just be ready. I'm going to invite them to just tell their name and what they learned today as a part of our time together looking at city services and city staff and city facilities. So.
Hi, I'm Kaija. I'm a senior at Science Hill, and today I learned that the landfill Iris Glen, we've actually kept it sustainable for more years than we initially thought it would be sustainable for.
Good afternoon. My name is Beyonce, and I'm a senior at Science Hill. Today I learned a lot about our community. I learned about the diversity and the several programs and forms that this community is achieving at this moment to incorporate several new things, not only the diversity in our community, but the diversity within the programs. I think that I got a greater insight of what our community is doing, and it encouraged me to participate more in it.
I'm Eli Simpson, and I'm also a senior at Science Hill. And I would say Iris Glen, but Kaya just said that. But that was really interesting. I had never been there. And the whole process that they had going on there was super fascinating. But aside from that, it was very interesting to see how many different volunteers from different fields and backgrounds it took to run a city, and how we have to continue building that. And so I guess I was just encouraged by this program because I felt like sometimes we don't connect our youth well enough, specifically to local government, but I felt like with this, we can start to connect youth back to their local government to build a foundation for people to serve later on.
My name is Miles. I'm also a senior at Science Hill. I learned how much long-term planning there is involved with pretty much everything that goes on.
My name is Ani J. Shankar. I'm a senior at Science Hill.
Today I learned a lot of things. I think I learned maybe most of all how interactive and how engaged local city government is with our community, and how we as like students have an impact, that we can have a voice to create change within our community and help foster diversity, newer connections, and then great resources for the community.
I'm Morgan Lee. I'm a junior at Science Hill, and I learned a lot about budgeting and how whenever you're planning out things, you can have one-time projects from grants and whatnot, but you can also plan for projects like they were talking about the paving roads and whatnot, which is like a 20-year plan, which I thought that was really fascinating, how you can just plan out and adjust for inflation and all that to prepare yourself so that way, yeah, your every payments are all covered, yeah.
My name is Bryant Magnus, and I learned that you can take dulcimer lessons in Johnson City.
All right, well, I want to just take a minute to say how proud we are of you and your classmates who are here. By the way, dulcimer lessons, Kefauver Farm, $75 a month, in case you needed more detail. But just how proud we are of each of them and the time they've spent here today, and woe the places you will go. And so we're glad that you spent a day with us. When you look back on this day, I hope it will inspire you to apply to serve on boards and commissions and fill some of these seats in the future. We're proud of each of you. And I want to say to the adults in the room, if you're second guessing the quality, the caliber, the commitment of young people, let me dispel from your mind anything short of the tremendous potential that was represented in the young people we spent today with. And so I'm very proud of you, and I wish you all the best.
Mayor,
and apparently Kathy's taking our picture.
Mayor, could we get them in front and we'll stand up behind them?
Yeah,
Get a
why don't,
group
yeah,
picture?
well, apparently, group picture time, all right. Follow
Y'all kind of
Commissioner
slide over
Brock's
to the
lead.
center there. Great.
Thank you all.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Commissioners, your next order of business is the consideration of approval of the minutes for the March 24th, 2022 meeting.
Are there modifications or a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Commissioners, your next order of business is consideration of two different beer license. The first is consideration of a beer license application for project BBQ LLC at 3301 North Roan Street, Johnson City, Tennessee.
What kind of food will they be serving? Barbecue.
Ooh, yeah. That was-
So is the applicant here? If you'll come to the podium, please, and give your name and business address.
Good evening. My name is Steve Tallarico with Project Barbecue. The address is 3301 North Roan Street, Johnson City.
Have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of alcohol inside the city limits?
Yes, I've been through the class and the permit and everything.
And do you agree to abide by them?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. And outside of serving barbecue, what would you like to tell us about your new establishment?
It's something that y'all have to try. It's a little different than barbecue in this area. We don't use any gas, no propane. It's all 100% wood fire cooked. So everything from our mac and cheese sauce to our brisket, pulled pork, turkey, salmon, you name it. It's all done right there on those two smokers that we have on the lot. So please come out and take a look at it.
And when will you officially open?
So we've been doing soft openings the last couple weeks, trying to get completely staffed up. So we're right now just Fridays and Saturdays starting at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
So if I can make a pitch for your place, it's right next door to the animal shelter. So on your way out to get a dog or a cat, stop by and eat first, and then come on out and we'll get you all fixed up.
There you go.
And
like it.
I will give a testimony also. I've been to their food truck before it became the restaurant there, and I've been to the restaurant part of the soft opening. And as soon as they open, I'll be going back, so.
Thank you.
Best
Yeah.
wishes.
Glad to have you.
Appreciate it. Same here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. The next item is consideration of a beer license application for Seduxo operations at 1300 Jack Vest Drive in Johnson City, Tennessee. Staff recommends approval.
Is the applicant here? If you'll give your name and business address, please.
My name is Kelvin Tarakwasha. We have multiple business addresses. I think one of them is 1276 Gilbreth Drive. I'm not sure if that's the one that we use.
Thank you.
And I'm Mark Folks, University Counsel at ETSU, just here in case there are
Sure, thank
questions
you.
or anything for you.
Have you read the rules and regulations concerning the sale of alcohol inside the city?
Yes, sir.
And do you agree to abide by them?
Yes, sir.
All right. Are there questions for the applicant?
No.
Or a
Motion, move to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy? Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. Is there anything you'd like to say about your venture?
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Short and sweet. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we have a number of different road closures for events. The first one that comes before you is a road closure request for the JCDA for Fridays after 5. Andy?
Hello, hello. So JCDA is requesting closure of King Street and Millard Street as outlined in the site plan provided from the hours of 4 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on May 13th, 20th, 27th, June 10th, 17th, 24th, July 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th, and August 5th. The Special Events Committee has reviewed, and we do recommend approval.
Good. So Lindsay, are you ready to start Friday nights?
Yes. And I hope to see all of the commissioners and our new city manager there, all 12 weeks.
And again, for the public, when do they start?
They start May 13th and will go until August 5th.
Okay. I move for approval.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. If there's no discussion, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
I do have a question, if that's all right. What is your estimate now? Of course, we've had COVID, and then we moved it from Founder's Park over to King Commons. What's your estimate of attendance on a Friday night?
In 2019, we had an average of 800 to 900 in attendance. In 2021, we averaged 2,800 in attendance, with many nights reaching over 3,300. So I would expect this year to average in at about 3,200 or more.
And was it your job to count them?
I actually had several volunteers walk around with clickers, counting numbers and asking people to stay socially distanced.
I think we'd all have to agree then that King Commons and Founder's Park have become gathering places for our community. It's just a place where people can socialize and be with one another, and it's great to see everybody come in and get some great entertainment.
Yes, I hope for another successful year with safe gathering, which we are all happy and eager to see again in our community.
Thank you.
And Andy, if you can stay with us after this, that would be great.
Yeah, you're here for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
that's
you,
it.
Lindsay.
Thanks.
That's it. The next order of business is another road closure request for Girls on the Run 5K.
So Girls on the Run 5K is requesting intermittent temporary road closures of Roseberry Drive, Ravenwood Drive, Sundale Drive, Rambling Road, Grady Drive, Camelot Circle, Avondale Drive, Wilmer Street, Avonlea Place, Ferndale Road, Lakespur Drive, and Tornado Lane for their 5K on May 6th. And the times for the closures would be between 2:30 and 4:30 p.m. Special Events Committee has reviewed, and we do recommend approval.
Are there questions for the applicant?
I do have a question, just a procedural one.
Sure.
Because these are roads over in North Johnson City I don't think we've ever closed before. What kind of communication do we have with the residents in these areas to know that they're going to be closed?
We do, the organization is encouraged to do press releases and notify areas of like when we're going to close roads. So, that could look like door hangers or just reaching out in social media, different things like that.
I think door hangers would be the more reliable, because I know some people on some of those streets, and I don't think they do social media.
We have done a few races there in the past, and it has been proven to be quite successful. So.
Hi, my name is Stevie Michele. We've spoken to the principal over at Town Acres School, and he's really excited about having the 5K over there. And we have distributed press releases and talked to some community members who are really excited about the 5K over there. But we actually, the time for the road closures are not correct. It's later in the day.
Okay. Do you mind telling me what they are, and then we can change that, please?
Yes.
My apologies for the error. It does need to be amended to be 5:45 to 7:30, please.
PM?
Yes. No, thank you for pointing that out.
So do we have a motion to approve the amended request?
Move for approval.
A motion.
Second.
And a second to approve the amended request. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
This is a very successful event. I've actually run in it before, in days gone by. But you're expecting about 1,500 to run in it this year? I think the year I was in it, it was about 800, so that's good. And the work y'all do for young girls, Girls on the Run, is just an amazing program. And it not only teaches about running, but it teaches character development. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a number, next up from item 5.3 to 5-8 are a number of different road closures for the Goose Chase. Mayor, if it's okay with you, I will read off the items, and I know you have to vote on them separately, but we'll let them come up and speak to them. The first one is Run for Your Buns. The second one is May the 4th Be With You, Darth Dash. The next one, 5.5, is the Downtown Mile. 5.6, Bluegrass Half Marathon. 5.7, S'mores Run. 5.8, Jingle Bell Run 5K.
All right, so we'll start with Run for Your Buns. So Goose Chase is requesting temporary closures of Commerce Street, East King Street, Elm Street, East Fairview Avenue, Hill Street, East Myrtle Street, West Fairview Avenue, Montgomery Street for their 5K on April 23rd. Times for that would be from 4 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Special Events Committee has reviewed and does recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
And this is a fundraiser for colon
Gentle
cancer.
Move Colon Foundation. It's, actually, March was National Colon Health Awareness Month, and the organization thought it was too cold in March, so she moved to April. So you don't chap your buns, I guess. But anyway, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but you all know me well. Anyway, it is on April 23rd. It's for a great cause, and it's one of those diseases that many people don't talk about. And so she's just trying to bring some light to the situation, and people have fun and get healthy.
I'll move for approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
So before we get into the next one, Karen does have a special guest that she's brought with her that she'll bring up for this one.
Oh, lightsabers.
What'll Karen take that back?
Oh, I get one. I get one. Yay.
All right. Yay.
Hey, there we go. My life is complete.
Uh-oh. Bringing
So
them
I
out.
guess we just hold our lightsaber up to
Yeah.
Ashley has asked that you vote yes to hold it up.
Okay, so for May the 4th be with you, the Goose Chase is requesting temporary closures of Commerce Street, East King Street, Elm Street, East Fairview Avenue, Hale Street, East Myrtle Avenue, West Fairview Avenue, and Montgomery Street for their road races on May 4th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Special Events Committee has reviewed, and we do recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
You should hold your
We have I'm sorry. Whatever here, we're going to vote.
We're gonna
Okay.
vote, yeah.
All right, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
and Mayor Wise.
Yes. Here we go. All right.
Well, that's a first.
That is a first, I can promise.
I've been working with the CVB, and we're hoping to make this a tourism draw for Star Wars fans, so it's actually on May the 4th. So, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Darth.
Next up, we have the Downtown Mile. So Goose Chase is requesting intermittent temporary closures of East Main Street, East Market Street, South Roan Street, Water Street, Buffalo Street, Tipton Street, and Spring Street, as outlined in the site plan, on Wednesday, June 1st, from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. Special Events Committee has reviewed, and we do recommend approval.
Okay, this is actually celebrating National Global Running Day. It's just a time for people to get healthy. Thankfully, Up and Atom Inc. actually is going to be our presenting sponsor this year, and they have some few announcements that they're going to say at that point. But it's just a time for people to come out. We'll have kids, we'll have a wide open adults, and then we have some elite runners that we actually run for prize money, and it's really become a very popular race. And actually, due to COVID and some other things, we had to move it for 2 years, and we were basically asked to come back. So that was a very good thing. So we look forward to being in downtown Johnson City on the June the 1st.
The children's race is just amazing.
Yes.
It's really great, yeah.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll on the Downtown Mile.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
All right, so next we have Bluegrass Half Marathon. Goose Chase is requesting temporary closures of Commerce Street, West King Street, Elm Street, Water Street, Buffalo Street, West State of Franklin, East Main Street, Burt Street, South Broadway Street, Colorado Street, Spruce Street, Orleans Street, Legion Street, Alabama Street, East Maple Street, Spring Street, Cherry Street, West Walnut Street, Ernest Street, West Maple Street, Cherokee Street, West Pine Street, West Locust Street, Gilbreth Drive, West State of Franklin, North State of Franklin, West Market Street, Veterans Way, Lamont Street, Hillcrest Drive, Wilson Avenue, and Winter Street as outlined in the site plan on Sunday, September 25th from 7:30 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. Special Events Committee has reviewed and does recommend approval.
I'm tired just listening to that list. That was a marathon, truly. It is the premier half marathon for the Tri-Cities market, and especially Johnson City. It has a reputation very much like the Turkey Trot, so we're very excited to bring that back to Johnson City. And of course, we highlight our heritage of bluegrass music throughout the course.
Is there a motion?
I have a question. Is there a limit to how many streets we can block off at once? That was a lot of streets.
Yeah, it is a lot of streets. It does sound like a lot when I read them all off, but it is sort of a rolling closure. A rolling closure. So as the racers finish, as the tail end finishes, those streets will open back up. So, and then police sort of manage that situation. So all of these streets are not going to be closed at the same time for the amount of time specified.
Well, this is about a 12-year annual event, and we've had this exact course for at least 4 or 5 years.
And it goes in front of our church, and it's minimally disrupt. I mean, they go by, and then they're gone. So, We do, yes, absolutely. We think, thank heavens it's not me out there.
Well, we have time to get in shape to run this, Commission. Y'all want to throw out a challenge
Okay,
here?
no,
to September?
no.
I don't want to drive
No.
26 miles.
Volunteer?
13 miles.
I move for
We
approval.
have a motion
Second.
and a second. We'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes. I will say that in the 10K, the Chasing Snakes, they call that stretch of Elm Street the Nightmare on Elm Street because it's all uphill and near the end.
So up next, we have the S'mores Run, which occurs on the Tweetsie Trail. And Goose Chase is requesting a soft closure of Alabama Street. That's for race setup and starting lineup on Saturday, November 25th from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. November 5th. Sorry, it says 5th on here. It says 5th. Did I say 25th? My apologies. Special Event Committee has reviewed, and we do approve, or we recommend approval for that race.
Well, we have s'mores at this one. You know I like to have fun, so you run 3.5 miles, and then we get off the trail at Smokehouse Barbecue Restaurant, and we have a huge campfire and s'mores, and it's a lot of fun for participants. It's one of actually the favorites of our running community.
And the Tweetsie Trail is not closed.
No.
It's
Closed.
it's
And
just,
we used to not close this street, but this is gaining momentum and popularity, and so just for people walking around, we don't want cars to come through.
Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
There's a motion and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
All right, and this is the last one we have. This is the Jingle Bell Run 5K, and the Goose Chase is requesting temporary closures of Commerce Street, King Street, Elm Street, Fairview Avenue, New Street, Myrtle Avenue, Millard Street, and Boone Street as outlined in the site plan provided for the Jingle Bell Run 5K on Saturday, December 11th from 3 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. A special events committee has reviewed this, and we recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. We'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioners, your next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
So we'll start with Commissioner Murphy.
Yes, sir.
Are there any items on the consent agenda
Yes, sir.
that you would like to pull?
I have several. Thank you. 6.1.1,
Yes.
6.1.5, and 6.1.6.
Any others?
No, sir.
Vice Mayor?
None for me.
Commissioner?
He pulled the ones I was going to pull, but I'll add one more, and that's 6.2.1.
6.2.1. All
I
right.
wanted to pull that for our students here, since they are aware of that project.
So the first one is consider approval of the final payment retainage release and change order for the final balance change order for the Unicoi Springs Collection house replacement. John Lamb,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy, what questions do you have?
Yeah, I want to give you an opportunity to present, because we hadn't talked about this in a while, and it's good to see that it's completed. But I had a question.
Sure.
With respect to retainage, and I know that there's a request to release this final payment to the company, the said company, and I wanted to know, are we contractually obligated to keep it for an extended amount of time, or are we trying to pay them early? Do we have advantages of keeping retainage for X amount of time in case something fails? We have monies to hold back and get repaired if the contractor doesn't. So I just want to give you a chance to respond to all that.
No, great question, Commissioner Murphy. So history on the project itself, Unicoi Spring House, Frizzell Construction completed the project for us, came in right $68,000 under budget. So the item you see on the commission agenda is the closing out of it. So part of that is we release retainage as the last item as the closeout. We hold 5% on every pay application the whole way through the project. So on the very last commission item here, we're releasing that 5% from that whole collection, that whole process through the last year while they've been doing construction, and we release that. But questions on if it comes up later on, we have usually a standard 1-year warranty on any work that we do. So we'll establish what they call a substantial completion date on that project. And so we're
contractor, even though they're closing out tonight, if it's approved, they still, if anything were to happen, we still have them until probably next February of next year for anything to fix as part of this project.
All your punch list items good? And
Yes.
everything's working with equipment and whatnot?
Yes, so that's, we did a on-site on-site walkthrough with the architect, the inspector on-site and the city. We did a walkthrough probably about 6 weeks ago, and that's part of coming up with that final punch list. After the punch list items were corrected by Frizzell Construction, then we established the substantial completion date. So that letter was sent to contractor, and then we did the final release of the retainage here for commission approval.
Mr. Lane, would you just share with the public the age of the older spring house that we replaced and when we started getting water from
Sure.
that site?
So the project itself, the Unicoi Spring House, the original one was from 1910. So kind of history-wise, what we were doing is we were replacing the original structure. So in order to keep that historical site there, we actually built the new site directly next to it. So the structure built in 1910 is still there. We're keeping that in place. The new spring house was built about 20 feet to the east of it. So that was the new one. It supplies about 4 million gallons per day of water to Johnson City. So the line actually goes parallel on I-26, comes in through Pine Oaks Golf Course is where that water line comes in. But it's about 4 million gallons a day from that spring house in Unicoi, and then actually goes through our Unicoi water plant first.
And that's about 20% of the water we use comes from Unicoi?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Are there other questions on that item?
I think Kathy had something.
Well, before John leaves, I would just like to, for the commission to know and congratulate him on the birth of his child. He had, is it your third?
Third son, so yes.
Third son within the past couple of months, so congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
The next item is consider approval of a contract with the Veterans Administration to provide sanitary service collection. And Commissioner Murphy, you had a question on that.
Sir, thank you, Mayor Wise. My question entails, my question is in regards to what does this contract entail? Residents don't do contracts to pick up or be engaged in this manner here locally. Why does the Department of Veteran Affairs need a contract with the city? If they don't use us as an option, what is their other option? So I just wanted to.
Our exclusive collection doesn't apply to the federal properties. So 20 years ago, we had to bid on the proposal to collect garbage on the campus, which we won. And we've been providing services in 5-year increments ever since. I think I mentioned 15. It's been a while. So, what we provide is residential totes and the commercial containers. The roll-off containers is a whole different matter, and that doesn't apply to the VA. So if we collect the roll-off containers, that's a whole separate deal. This is for residential and commercial containers.
Okay.
So it's a 5-year project. They have to bid it every 5 years.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for Mr. Pinzola? All right, the next item pulled was consider approval to apply for the RAISE grant through the U.S. Department of Transportation for further development of Innovation Park. Is that you as well?
What this is the federal government used to be I think a Tiger grant or something. They've changed the name of it to RAISE. And I think it's about $750 million, I believe, was the total for nationwide. So we're applying for a portion of that money in order to build the infrastructure at what we refer to as Innovation Park, which would be behind where Chick-fil-A is or Fresh Market. There are 2 tracks. One is owned by ETSU and one is owned by the city. And the bulk of the road is on the city property, but it does cross over the ETSU property so that we have tie-ins from Market Street over to State of Franklin. We also have an additional tie-in to McKinley Road, so that somewhere down the future, there might be a commercial node that incorporates where Burlington Industries used to be and whatever they are. So what we're applying for is to build the infrastructure. We estimated that cost to be $12 million, of which we've offered to pay 20% of that. The $2.4 million that the city obligation is included in the Economic Development Fund. We anticipate everything staying, all revenues, property tax revenues, et cetera, to remain in an Economic Development Fund. There are a lot of different benefits. I can't tell you whether or not the federal government will see it the way I see it, or we see it. But what I can say is this is the third phase of the MedTech Corridor project. You know, the first one is where the new hospital is in North Johnson City. That's 150 acres. The second area is where the Fine Arts Center is. It's a 23-acre site. Both those are essentially built out. This is the third phase, but it probably is the most critical for Johnson City long-term because it opens up land that we can't develop today. And so we have about 20 acres. ETSU has a few acres, and they put their facilities on it. What's really important for Johnson City is that whatever is established there, probably we don't see today. So we're looking into the future. And so once we build the infrastructure, we open that land up for future development that we don't know when it will occur and we don't know what it would be. But if you look at how we operate as a community, we have Innovation Lab. We were looking strongly at converting the courthouse facility to an incubator type facility. This is a place where, as those industries grow, could move. It could be something complete that we just do not see today. So that's why it's really critical for Johnson City because of where it's located. It's near our biggest employers, and we have these secondary impacts of a project that benefits the medical center, it benefits the VA, it benefits ETSU, it benefits innovation for the community whenever that may occur. And we hope that it occurs in the form as outlined in the master plan that was presented to you a few meetings ago. The design and everything has already been contracted and should be ready to go by the end of the year so that we can bid the project. Will this get funded? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know it's critical for Johnson City.
What's the grant deadline and when would it be granted if
We have
were
to
get
have it in by
April
14th, I think.
And then when do
And
they
then
grant
we
it?
should know before October 1st.
Okay.
So Commissioner Murphy, you asked to pull that.
Yes,
Are
sir.
you left with any questions?
Yes,
Phil, so
what are our obligations for, say, if we get this grant? What are our obligations? Are they reporting factors, or what are some of the details behind the grant? And what
Typically
happens?
behind federal monies, there's usually that.
Okay.
We'll have everything cleared. We'll probably be coming back to you with we're going to change the contract with S&ME in order to improve some of the intersections along the state of Franklin and get the environmental regulations, get all the certifications done before the end of the year. On reporting, they typically have 5-year reportings. They typically will follow up with Janet's Janet's group in a typical federal program. So there is a follow-up that usually occurs, and it's usually for about 5 years. And so our obligation, again, would be 20% of whatever the total cost is in the construction. So if the construction were 10 million, then obviously our obligation would be 2.
So what happens if we don't get the grant? Is there an alternative means to try to fund something like this?
Our
These meetings are
review
on
of-
the internet. We can't let them know we can do it if they don't give us the money.
Well, we have to assess our risk-taking, okay? Because I can't make the sale of the land and the property tax generation from a build-out or a full build-out. I can't get that to equate to the number needed to build out the project. So we take risk-taking, and by that is, are we willing to see that vision and anticipate employment growth that has a number that we haven't attached to anything? So the risk-taking would be in the employment, future employment. What we would probably end up doing is incrementally build out the project. We have talked, Hank Carr with RTG and I have talked about, if we don't get the grant, do we apply for the following year, or do we do it in stages so we can open up some of the land to get the project moving and to accommodate some of the building that's already going to occur with ETSU. And that, so you'd be looking at an incremental stage, knowing full well that you cannot recoup the investment through land sales. So that's just something we have to kind of talk our way through.
But doesn't this project also kind of check another box, because it's a connector now, goes down through this property to McKinley, but doesn't it tie into the intersection of Novus Road, which is the new road that we put in behind Publix where the old animal shelter used to be, and that goes all the way over to State of Franklin?
Commissioner, everything we've done has been with the idea of creating a minor circumferential network around the hospital and the VA. So when Gold Star Boulevard was built, it ties into Indian Ridge. Indian Ridge ties into Novus Drive, then Novus Drive circulates and would tie into this street, which would then go through where the professional office buildings are. It would also have a direct link to the main entrance of the hospital through Century Lane. That's always been our vision, and we've gotten most of it built except this section, which I think is great. It also has the pedestrian movement. You know, we've got 13 miles of State of Franklin Trail built from North John City downtown, and this is sort of a center section. So that's a good thing. The people on the south end of town have a hard time accessing Market Street. So yes, the connection to McKinley Road and up through here to a signalized intersection would really be a huge benefit to them, and it would download some of the traffic that's cutting through neighborhoods. The benefits are endless. And that's been discussed in the application.
Eventually, that trail system would find its way over to the Tweetsie Trail, is that correct? Can we get there?
It does connect to the Tweetsie Trail, yes.
It's a good project.
Are there other questions on that item?
Mayor, if I may make a comment, this is a grant that came across our radar, and I really appreciate Phil's initiative to take this up and run with it. He brought in, as he mentioned, RTG and team and Hank Carr and JT McSpadden, and did an incredible amount of work on refining the grant. But I really appreciate the teamwork that happened on this outside the organization as well. I feel good. I've been involved in Tiger grants. They do require some Davis-Bacon employment requirements. They require bidding. They have specific bidding requirements. All of those are within our scope of being able to do, and I don't think are overly cumbersome to be able to do. But I really appreciate the work that was put into, in a short time frame, to doing something that was as challenging as this. And I'm very hopeful that we will be awarded the grant.
Department, is it through Commerce, federal, or does it run through the state?
It runs through the
Transportation.
transportation. The Tiger ones ran through transportation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The last item pulled was the skylight replacements for Freedom Hall Civic Center Phases 2 and 3. Commissioner Brock, you asked to pull those.
And Randy is making his way to the podium.
Sure. We've done a considerable amount of renovations to Freedom Hall. It's a beautiful Class A facility now, and this is one of the hopefully final pieces that we're getting to. But Mr. Trivet, if you could just explain it a little bit to us, what we're going to see for this money.
Yes, I'd be happy to. If you remember, about a year ago or less than a year ago, we awarded a contract to Burwell Construction to do the north and the south side of Freedom Hall to replace the existing skylights. The skylights that are in the building are existing from the construction of the building, and so they have leaked a lot. They have cracked the block and the surrounding areas, and so we wanted to address that to prevent that water infiltration from coming inside the building. On the north and the south side of the property, there's 12 skylights, and they're the lower ones that you can see. On the east, and this phase is Phase 2 and Phase 3, and it's the east and the west side. And there's 24 skylights on the east and west side. There's 2 layers, and the upper layer has a temporary metal roof over the top of those, but the skylight is still incorporated underneath that, and it's still getting water and access to it into the arena area. And so this request is for the east and the west side to replace all those, put a roof on the upper ones, and replace the lower ones that allow light into the concourse area.
Will this take care of all of them now? Or?
This will cover every skylight in the building.
And Mr. Trivet, if you can talk about the funding source for this project?
The funding source we had in the capital project for Phase 1, and in Phase 2, there was an opportunity because of COVID to loss of revenue for the facility. And so Assistant City Manager Stahl applied for that, put in all the work to obtain that money, and there was about a little over $500,000 that came in for that. And so that's what's going to be used to apply this. And then the rest of it will have to come, the difference in that will have to come from capital projects.
Are there other questions for Mr. Trivet?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Trivet, thank you. What kind of skylights are you putting in? What proof is the glass and the light? You're going to be cutting into the roof. Is that going to void our current roof warranty? What kind of warranty do we have on the lights that are going to be, I mean, not lights, but, skylights, rather, that's going to be installed? So that's a series of questions there.
Sure, and those are very good questions. Once you get to know me for a long period of time, you'll realize that I will never approve or come and ask you guys to cut a roof to put a skylight in. As I was growing up, my dad used to always say, why would you cut a hole in a perfectly good roof to allow sunlight or something in? But these are not in the roof. These are on the side of the building, and they're like bump outs from the building. And what we're replacing them with is a lot more efficient type skylight, and it's not glass. It's a different material. It's a polymer type material that'll still allow the sun and all the light that we garner from these skylights to come into the concourse, so that we don't have to burn the interior lights as much. And then they'll have all the aluminum framing that'll go around the side of them. So everything will come out to the block and brick that's on the exterior of the building. And this new unit will slide in completely and be installed with proper flashing. All that's detailed out into the architectural design.
Are these lights, are they energy efficient?
They are energy efficient. We made sure of that for heating and cooling loss because we just upgraded all the HVAC systems at Freedom Hall. So we have those on a control system, and we also do a yearly monitoring, and they do it every quarter to review the alarms and how the equipment's running to make sure that we're keeping our motors operating, making sure our dampers are staying open or closing when they're supposed to. And that's ended up, I did an analysis on that since we started that. It cost us about $18,000 a year. And in the first year that we had that program going, we were able to correct so many things that we saved over $36,000 that year. In energy cost, electric.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Very good.
All right, so at this point, if there are no other items, we're looking for action on the consent agenda. For our students and anyone else, this is an approval of about a dozen different items. You've heard a sampling of them pulled from the consent agenda, but need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
We have a motion to
Second.
approve and a second. If there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
The next order of business is an ordinance, the first reading of an ordinance providing for the conveyance of a certain parcel of real property owned by the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, located in the 5th Civil District of Unicoi County, Tennessee, to the town of Unicoi upon the terms and conditions contained herein, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewithin.
Legal documents.
And I believe do we have Charlie?
Here comes Whitney right here.
I don't think she has anything to do with this one. Do you?
I think we have Charlie, Assistant City Manager Stahl.
This ordinance is related to the sale of the property. As you know, you already approved an agreement at the last meeting to be executed by the Mayor of Johnson City and the Mayor of Unicoi, and that is associated with this. But as required by the city, we are required to dispose of city property on 3 readings of an ordinance. This is the first of 3 readings. It's my understanding from the city attorney that there would be a public hearing that would probably be scheduled for second reading.
Are there questions for Mr. Stahl?
I'll move for approval.
We have a motion to approve and a second. We'll call the roll if there's not objection.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Commissioners, the next order of business is the second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to rezone .885 acres at 1105 Emeryville Road from R2 District to R2C District to create 4 single-family lots. Thank you, Whitney.
Good evening. This request is found at the corner of Wendell and Embryville Road. We're going to go through a slight bit of history because this has been in the process for about a year. You guys haven't seen it. The Planning Commission has seen it a couple of times. But what they're asking for in current form is just for 4 lots. Now, originally, this was a larger tract, and the developer had wanted multifamily. When it came to the neighborhood meeting, the neighborhood came out and said, this is really not what we want in our neighborhood. And so Mr. Begley went back and decided, okay, that's not it. So single family is what he would like to propose. And in that process, he has sold this lot 5, but it still remains with the 4 lots. The lot 5 went to the adjoining property owner. And so that's just a final plat to show you that that's kind of what happened. So that we've had 3 different neighborhood meetings on this request. And currently, it's 4 lots. They average about 64 feet in width and about 9,500, 9,600 in square feet. And it would be these right here. Neighbors have come to every meeting. They are here again So they will talk about what their concerns are, but mainly those are around compatibility, it being smaller lots than what's in Windale. And so just to kind of show you the difference between that R2B, R2C, and kind of why there is some flexibility and why some people ask for some flexibility, we have our handy dandy chart that we can come back and refer to many times. The area is proposed to be residential, so this does match with that. If you've had a chance to visit the site, these are some pictures. If you have not, you can see it's kind of gently rolling, and the part that's in the back is the part that's kind of that falls off. That's what was for sale, and this is what was sold, and this is kind of where Windale is, where that large right of way. And I am available for any questions, and this is where we're talking about.
Are there questions for Whitney?
All 4 lots front Emeryville Road.
They do. And there is, they still have to come back for a final plat and will need driveway permits. So there will be some assessment of site distance issues and things like that at that point. But this action is just of whether you want to change it from R2 to R2C.
We have public notice of public hearing, so I will open the floor to anyone wishing to speak in favor or against ordinance 4804-22. This is the item that was just described. So anyone wishing to address the commission, if they'll approach the podium, please. And when you get here, give your name and address. And
Afternoon, my name is John Fine. I live at 1016 Embryville Road, and I'm here for opposition against this. I had spoken last time to the members here at the committee. I live in my current residence, been there for approximately 24 years. My property has been in my family since the house was built in the 50s. There are several others in our community that are opposed to this that have seen the changes and that have lived there for a pretty long time. And we're seeing issues that this could cause later on down the road, whether it be with the number of vehicles that's going to be on the road or on the property, parking along the side if there's not enough room due to the limited lot size. If the lot was originally left the way it was at approximately 1.7 acres, you could have probably put, no problem, 4 standard size houses in that we have in our area, ranch style houses. Now they're trying to shrink, or they have shrunk and sold off part of the land, shortening your lots up to, I guess, the maximum for R2C, 60 foot wide. What that also does with these buildings that he's going to have to produce is, with the width of the building itself, if you slap a garage in the front of these buildings, you've shortened everything up on your front end. Not to mention, you've got 8-foot offsets on both sides of the buildings themselves. You have no choice but pretty much so to build up. The housing in our area are basically ranch-style houses. So you're going to be building something like a townhouse, scrunched up, 4 of them in this small area. And that alone is just going to throw everything off. We only have, I think there's one, basically in a mile radius, there's 1 2-story house. That's right in front of my house. And it was probably built before the 50s. So not only are the houses really not going to fit into our community, even though you only see a few people here today, a good majority of our community are against this. And many of my friends and neighbors will comment on that a little bit later. I didn't want to cross over in too much of what they had to say, but there's not just me as far as what we consider, not old timers, but people that have been in the community for a long time that have seen a lot of these changes, and we just don't feel that this is going to really fit in. If there was only 2 houses built on the current property right now, I don't think there would have been an issue. And I know, even though if this was left as R2 zoning, Mr. Begley has every right, and I don't begrudge him anything. He can build a 2-story house, he can build a 3-story house as long as it's under code. But if we can limit that right now, I think it would really benefit our community instead of just pushing this forward and down the road. We also see the parcel that was sold that was adjoining this. There's another parcel behind that. And just us thinking on down the road, I wouldn't bet in another 20 years we're going to see a large apartment area like it's right off Antioch Road. There's a lot of apartments in the area, and I completely understand not only our city, the state, the whole United States as a whole. I know there's a shortage on housing. I understand that, and I don't begrudge anybody building on that property. But I think what is going to be built and the quantity just doesn't fit our community as a whole.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody?
Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
If you'll approach the podium and give your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Todd Lawrence. I live at 2196 Wendell Road, and I'm also against the opposition. Wendell Road and Emerville Road, that is where the ETSU bicycle loop is. So there's about 75 race bikes on that road every other day or so. So I think it would be helpful to keep the population down on that road. That's all.
Anyone else wishing to speak either in favor or opposed?
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your service. My name is Susan Kellogg, and I reside at 2218 North Greenwood Drive, Johnson City. I'm here tonight to oppose the rezoning of 1105 Emberville Road from an R2 to an R2C. Thanks, Whitney. I appreciate that. When I purchased my home in October of 2020, the Uniform Residential Appraisal Report stated that R2 zoning is expected to continue in this area as the highest and best use for the neighborhood in the foreseeable future. Appraisal value and zoning were high-level considerations for me when I purchased my property. So 4 months after I purchased, Mr. Gerald Bagley, working with the Johnson City Development Services, applied to rezone the above-mentioned property from an R2 to an R3, which was met with opposition, as you've heard tonight. My concerns for the new proposed rezone from an R2 to an R2C are the health and safety of my neighbors and my neighborhood. I foresee increased congestion on narrow streets and intersections, overcrowding of land, R2Cs are smaller lots, and the sustained stability of my current neighborhood. Conserving property values and compatibility of structures is my main concern. Although the site map in the agenda summary that you received, that's all right, shows R3 and R4 zones directly across the road from the proposed site, this can be deceiving when viewing a two-dimensional document. And I would like to point out that there is no access to these two zones from Emberville Road, and they sit many yards. Is that map still available? So when you, what's accessed on? Yeah, okay. So when you look at this here, and we've got, thank you, the lot in here that is the site, this here, the R3 and the R4, it can be deceiving because it's across this road, but it's down a very steep embankment. none of these properties down in here that are apartment complexes face this road. They face Antioch Road. And my main concern is that in time, if you change this to an R2C, and I'll give you these that I printed out just as a visual, because I think sometimes what can happen is you can hear what we're talking about and what we're thinking might happen in the future, but it's not as clear unless you see it. And for me, and where my property sits, so the site is here, and this, all of this property right in through here is Mr. Rusty Wilson's now. He purchased that lot 5 here from the original subdivision. My property is right here. So in the future, what you might have in that area is apartment complexes, and that's my main concern. I know we can't guarantee what will happen in the future, but I'm just apprehensive about this property setting a precedent. When you change something to a new zone, it's just that much easier to do one more zone after that, and then to be able to create multifamily properties in that area. So as of today's date, I and 43 of my neighbors have signed a petition to oppose the rezoning of this property from an R2 to an R2C. And with respect to the time and cost, Mr. Bagley and the Johnson City Development Services staff have spent planning the best use of this property, I do believe it would benefit the community and Mr. Bagley to move forward with subdividing the property for 2 lots and retaining the current zone at an R2. To end, I ask the Commission to consider the benefits of the community over the builder and refer to the Johnson City Planning Commission's bylaws, Article 11, Sub F, application for rezoning request. It states, the applicant shares a brief presentation on how the zoning change would be for the community benefit rather than for the benefit of the individual requesting the change or the person or persons owning the property. As of today, I have not been presented with any benefit to the community from Mr. Bagley or from the Johnson City Development staff that would allow me to support the rezoning of this property, and I ask you as commissioners to deny the request to rezone this property to an R2C.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service and for your time tonight. Thank you, Whitney.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor or against?
My name's Theodore Sims. I am speaking in opposition to this proposal. 3 major points: the traffic, a counter proposal that we have offered, and the perception of the neighborhood. Starting off with the traffic. Of all the streets in the immediate neighborhood, Amberville is by far the narrowest of all the streets. However, Wendale and Amberville both have the same classification of a local road. There's already illegal street parking on Amberville, which occurs every day. The approval of this proposal will only exacerbate the situation. More consideration needs to be provided as you're dealing with an incline, a relatively blind curve, and the intersection with Wendale, all in rapid succession. Obviously, the order those occur are contingent on which direction you're traveling. Under our proposed plan, Mr. Begley can still develop the property. He will still be able to make a profit, and the city will be able to collect more, if not at least the same amount in property taxes. Finally, in the question and answer portion of the first reading of this proposal, I believe it was Mayor Wise who asked about the response to the proposal in the subsequent neighborhood meeting. Whitney Hodges responded that while we were appreciative of the move from multifamily unit to single-family units, we still had concerns about the lot sizes. This statement does not present the significant objections that we do have in addition, some of which we've heard this evening, which include the traffic issues, the potential for future development, and the lack of attention to a counter proposal which we offered. My name's Theodore Sims. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm AJ Babel. I reside at 2217 Wendell, which is right next to this property. And I'll be brief, but just echo what my neighbors have said in opposition to this proposal. We don't oppose development. I don't oppose development, but I think the rezoning is simply unnecessary. It's not necessary for the development and subdivision of the property. And so it seems to me that the primary benefit is more to the property owner than to the community, as has been mentioned. And as Tad just said, the increased traffic, especially on Embryville, I mean, around that curve, it's essentially a one-lane road. I'm somewhat surprised that I've not had a wreck there at this point, but adding 4 houses 100 yards away is not going to help that. And so just ask you all to consider denying it as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak either? Yes, sir.
I'm Jerry Begley. I'm the owner of the property. And as Whitney has stated, we've been working on this for probably a year or longer. And we've had several neighborhood meetings, and we've tried to address their needs. And the city has also, I'm sure the traffic department has looked at this. It's an existing road. And we're talking about maybe 8 cars a day. If there's 4 houses, each one has 2 cars. That's pretty typical. So I don't think that the traffic is really an issue. And you guys now, when you see these subdivisions come before you, very seldom do you see lot sizes that were in 60 and 70-year subdivisions that were built in those years. So I think you realize that during these times, these lots are going to become smaller, especially on city infill lots. And we're actually exceeding the frontage and the square footage of the zoning a little bit. So we're making them a little bit larger than the zoning request. I don't think we're going to be changing the dynamics of the neighborhood. It's still going to be a single-family neighborhood. As their concern is housing styles, housing sizes, parking on the street. That's just stuff, you can't control. Once somebody moves in, even in the existing neighborhood, if somebody wants to park on the street or put a 2-story addition on their house, that can happen. So I don't think we're really changing the dynamics of the neighborhood. Like they said, there's R3 across the street. There's B4 on the street down below. That there's some townhouses down there already, a couple of churches down there that are commercial zoning. So it's not like we're really trying to, and we've done everything we can to try to appease the neighborhood to this point.
A couple questions of Mr. Begley. Sure. You're talking about utilizing more square footage of the lots. Why didn't you apply for R2B? Because that is 9,000 square feet. What impact would that have on your development?
Mathematically, that changes, it's because of the lot width, because he's doing, I think they're 64 feet wide. So the R2B would need 75 feet. So to do that, he would likely lose a lot to be R2B.
That's the answer, though. You would go from 4 to 3.
It would be less density, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is your intention to build single-family, one-level homes in there?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be building on the lots or not. I could possibly be selling some of them. So, you can still put a ranch-style house on that lot. Just because of the narrow width doesn't mean that you can't do that. Now, they will have front entry garages, but most of the new houses in the newer, smaller lot subdivisions do have front entry garages.
Are there other questions for Mr. Begley while he's there? Okay, thank you, sir. Public hearing remains open. If there's anyone else wishing to speak, if not, we'll close public hearing and turn to the commission for deliberation or action.
What was the vote in the development?
For planning commission?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right, it was 6-0. 6-0.
I guess one of the things I do consider here is these smaller sized lots with kind of oversized houses on them. I would probably be more comfortable if it was R2B and, using more of the space there, particularly in this location. Just a comment.
To attest to Commissioner Brock's comments, I know our last commission meeting, we all voted 5-0, first reading. And after today, I'm kind of on the fence, and seeing some of the details of how those lots, you're moving from an R2 to an RC, that's not a small jump. And but an RB seems to be more reasonable. But just thinking out loud as to the logistics of this, the request, and hearing the concerns of the citizens on today, and seeing the overview I've written down there. I've drove around that neighborhood before the meeting on today, and there's some things to think about. We could pass this on today and get one more reading. It has to have 3 readings. But those are just thoughts that I'm dealing with right now.
Could you put your chart back up? So it is presently R2.
Correct.
And he's asking R2C, but I feel like the 6,000 is the minimum, but that's not, what was the actual number of what?
9,600.
So-
9,500, sorry, 9,500.
9,500. Okay, so from a footprint size, let's round it and call it 10,000 square feet versus 15,000 square feet, roughly.
Yes.
I'm sensitive to the neighborhood concerns. I think sometimes you can read, looking at a flat map, things look closer together than they do when the topography changes and roads, interrupt a scene. At the same time, the concerns that the neighbor had, if we were to approve this, you still have R2C. I mean, you still have R2 zoning. It's just a flavor of R2 zoning. Infill development is always going to be a bit of a challenge because somebody's going to do something with it, right? And so right now, we're having a conversation. It seems Mr. Begley's at least open to a dialogue with the neighborhood. And I'm just wanting to make sure we evaluate, the development of this at R2C may in fact be closer to preserving the integrity of the neighborhood that you're talking about than if we do nothing and this deal doesn't happen, and 5 years from now, somebody else is coming in with a different idea and we're back to somebody asking for for R3 or, in the R2C, you're keeping single family, and in the lot sizes he's describing, you're 2/3 of the lot size you'd have if he did something today. At the same time, R2C is my least favorite zone, but that's just my own personal.
May I ask tag a question to that? If we approve the R2C, there's 4 lots there. And Mr. Begley has said tonight he may sell those lots and somebody else come in and, so that new person could come in with an R2C and build on the 6,000 square feet. Is that correct?
If he's if it was rezoned and he's subdivided, he could, and they subdivided it, because that's the next step. He still has to come back, he still has to do a final plat. And once that is sold, then yes, they could build on the 6,000 square feet. But no, you would have to be whatever the concept plan is.
The plat is.
The plat is, so it's the 9,600 square feet. It would be a concept plan amendment if it came to something smaller. Or if they made a significant change, it's a better way to say it. If they made a significant change, then that would come back as a concept plan amendment. But what, just kind of as a one thing to consider, because I hear your comments and kind of I'm fighting not to say anything, is that all of these are low-density residential. And historically, this zone has been to help different neighborhoods in a way conform, but in present is being used as these are our mechanisms for infill development. And until we have different mechanisms for infill development, we use the tools that we have.
Customarily, the chair doesn't make motions, so.
You know, I've seen the tree streets have had infill, and of course, those are smaller lots, I think, in some parts of the tree streets. And the homes that have been put in there have been very, very attractive and, you know, fit in, you know, with the.
But I think to Whitney's point, one of the challenges is using the R2 and its various iterations in those denser urban infill environments, because they have all sorts of challenges. I mean, is that a fair characterization of what I think you were saying?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
fair.
So just for, at this point, we're just being asked R2C.
Correct.
We could approve R2C, that doesn't bind anybody to 4 lots. What
does-
would happen? I mean,
okay, so-
let's
so let's-
assume.
So we
yeah.
go with the minimums, and let's assume
Okay.
that market forces do something different. This means that he could only sell 3 lots. He come back for a final plat and sell 3 lots. I'm not sure that that's necessarily likely, but I'm saying it could happen. I'm saying that there's also things could happen where someone decides to buy 2 lots and not 1 lot.
They aren't lots yet, though.
But they're not
I mean,
lots
it's
yet.
one, right now,
All
it's
that can
one
happen, yeah.
track.
Right now, it's 1 track, and it's R2. So, and I can't do that math in my head very quickly to know if I can divide it into 2, but I'm going to say yes, I can divide it into 2. And so you've got, right now, as R2, it could be 2 lots. At one point in time with the math, they actually could, with the larger lot, could still possibly get the 5 lots. It was kind of in that flexibility range. But as he sold that off, to kind of preserve different things, because one of the other things about this is that the way he is subdividing it is it maintains square lots. Like, it maintains the kind of a uniform shape. Whereas if he had the larger track, he could likely get the same amount, 5 lots off of it, but they would be at awkward angles and would not necessarily still meet that character but it could be done, or could have been done. So whether it's R2 or R2C, it's only going to be single family.
Ms. Hodge, would you go through again? I love your slide up here. It's really clear, helps me with clarity. The big difference, because the side setbacks is really only 2 feet difference between the R2 and the R2B and R2C. The big difference is just the width.
The big difference are the top 2 lines, to be perfectly honest. It's square footage and lot width. And that's where it comes to, every lot is only so big, it can only be divided so many times.
So do we have the lot widths of this proposed 4?
Yes, they're about 64 feet.
Okay. So the depth then is what's giving the
Additional square footage.
additional square
Yes.
footage. Mayor, I'd like to extend the public input to third reading. Could we do that? And
We've closed public hearing. I mean, there's really nothing that we can open public hearing whenever we want, I think. So is everyone agreeing that we can do that?
I'm looking around.
Sunny, I don't know if Sunny's available to answer this
I
question,
mean, I don't know that it would be a
or
part of the
Preston.
notice, but we can have that
You
understanding.
would need to reopen it at this one so that we don't have to re-advertise.
All right, hasty move. Public hearing is reopened okay. And remains open until somebody says otherwise. Okay. And so you were going somewhere, Commissioner Brock.
and I'll kind of withdraw that. I'm not sure where I was going with it.
Okay, well then I'm gonna close. No.
Okay. I'm assuming now we just move to the next item?
A motion needs to be made in order to move it to third or to defer. We have to make,
We have to do something, I think, is what
Yeah.
Ms. Hodge is saying. And, you know, herein lies the tension. You know, I appreciate everything the neighbors have said.
we have to make one of these motions.
Yeah, I've appreciated what the neighbors have said. I can also see what Mr. Begley's observations are. I recognize the challenges of infill development. When some of these zones were created, the kinds of houses we were building were different. You know, you look at the tree streets, the houses sit on the lots, different. You know, the houses built in 1950s, 60s, 70s are parallel to the road. There's just subtle differences. And trying to figure out how to make use of this less than 2 acres,
less than an acre.
less than an acre, in a way that preserves the single-family character of that neighborhood is important. That's at least one of the benefits of R2C. You know, this is one of those situations where I really don't like any of our choices. Because if we leave it and do nothing, yeah, nothing happens this year or next year, but at some point, there's going to be a pressure to do something, and it may be far worse than 4 single-family houses on 10,000 square foot lots. That's my thinking. Now, again, for the benefit of those who are here, if we approve this on second, we've already reopened the public hearing. If we approve this on second reading, it still isn't a done deal. And I have seen in my time on the commission, things that pass first and second reading fail on third. So nobody should leave tonight if it does pass on second reading thinking it's a done deal. It survives to be discussed another day. Well, I'm just asking for anything, you know?
I have one final question for Mr. Begley. Are you planning on selling all the lots, or are you going to build on a couple of them?
I'm not sure at this time. I really honestly don't know.
Okay.
I'm sort of winding down my building career. I've been doing it for 40-some years, so
A good chance you'll sell them.
good chance they could be sold, possibly.
You don't have a plan to do anything with it. Like, there's no plan. You're just kind of up in the air as to what you're going to do with this.
Well, there'll definitely be somebody, me or someone, I'm sure.
But you're going to sell the property?
With a location.
Okay.
You know, that there will be some houses there shortly, I'm sure.
Okay.
And I have had some other builders inquire. You know, they say, we're looking for lots, wonderful location, beautiful view out the back. When you decide what to do, let us know.
I guess you have 3 options spelled out very nicely on the slide, by the way. Thank you.
Usually never get this far.
No, we
so
don't.
It's always here for you.
And we are down a commissioner because we had a family commitment that precluded Commissioner Hunter from being here tonight. And that in and of itself may be reason to keep that discussion open in some way, because there's a distinct possibility that a vote could end up in a way that isn't as clear as you might like it in a group with only 4 people.
So defer action, is that limited to those exact words? Or
No,
can we
you can just defer action.
Can we just defer second reading?
You can defer
And
second
have
reading.
another second
Yeah.
reading? Okay.
You can defer second reading.
So we can keep the public comment open and have another.
And we just would be hitting it at second reading again
Mhm.
at our
Next
next
meeting.
meeting.
Yes.
I think, I recommend we do that, have more time to research, dig into it. Yeah, that is a
So there's
motion.
a motion to put this on the table until our meeting of the
Yes, sir.
21st.
21st.
I would second his motion to defer.
We have a motion and a second, which
And keep
means
it
for
open.
those that are here, the public hearing piece remains open. And assuming that that passes, know as you are formulating your thoughts about this, the big part of it in our, at least in my thinking, is how to deal with the infill component. I want to protect the nature and character of your neighborhood. And in some respects, R2C, with some clarity of what the plan will be. We don't know what Mr. Begley is going to do, but if it, from the standpoint of building, but we know he's talking about 4 lots. And if he has people who want to buy them, he's going to be pretty quickly coming in here to get it replat. And once it's replat, those options, it just becomes harder and harder to deviate from what it is we're talking about. So, and then if you sell one of them in the middle, it really kind of upends doing anything. You know, there are going to be 4 lots. I guess how that fits into the neighborhood, trying to preserve that quality in your neighborhood, those are the arguments that we're having to weigh. So I have a motion and a second to defer till the 21st. If there's not further discussion, are you ready to call the roll? I will call the roll if there's not objection.
Commissioner Brock,
We're voting in favor of
To
deferral.
deferral, to
Yes.
put it on the table.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler.
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next order of business is the second reading of and public hearing of an ordinance to rezone an unnumbered parcel at the northeast corner of South Roan Street and University Parkway from R1 District to PB District and R4 District. Peyton, thank you.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. In front of you, I have the rezoning for R1 to R4 for this piece right here at the corner of East Highland and South Roan, and then the extension of the planned business district right here. And again, I wanted to make note that this is currently split zoned. However, there is a subdivision process that would align with the proposed zoning lines. And again, a reminder about the concept plan. We've got a proposed Dollar General going in right here. This tenant is to be determined, but it would meet all requirements of the planned business district. And here would be 6 townhomes that would front onto East Highland, but would gain their access off of South Roan at this entryway that is at the top of the hill. And this access point right here is a right in, right out only, whereas this would be a full access point. I colored it. I know that sometimes the black and white drawings can be a little hard to understand. So just so you guys have a little bit better of an idea of what's going on. And I know that there was some concern over the entryway, so I made a trek to the side of the road, to the top of the hill, to take some pictures about what exactly that really looks like. So as you can see, when you're at the top of the hill, you can see down to the light, and over here you can see up and then slightly around the curve of the road right there. And then I also have just a video of some cars going by.
Wondering what you're doing standing in the middle of the street.
Oh, I'm sure they were. I got a lot of weird looks. And then you can see you just saw a car from right down there, and you still have quite a while before it gets up to the top. So I just wanted to include those to give you some boots on the ground perspective of what the top of that hill looks like and what your sight distance really does look like. There were 2 neighborhood meetings because just like Whitney's previous item, this had a little bit of history and some revisions as well. Planning Commission recommended approval, and staff recommends approval. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for staff?
I do. Our traffic division, when this driveway got moved up to the top of the hill, what is their assessment of how it might conflict with Highland Road and just the line of sight both ways?
The sight distance is what we really looked at, and that was adequate in both directions, unlike what you have for, is it Walgreens or whatever? That doesn't have that type of same deal. And in fact, it's better than what Highland has looking to the south. Highland has somewhat of a sight distance issue. So this is sort of a combination. We're good with this.
While you're up there, is there a plan for Roan Street there on what's going to happen as far as turning lanes and center turning lane, or is that where there's a raised middle to this, is that going to be changed
I
completely?
think that has to be obliterated somewhat in order to get that left turn in. So they'll have a left turn lane to get into the
So there'll be a center turning
Yes.
zone in the middle.
So with the driveway moved to the top of the hill, it'll be both left and right turns out of that driveway?
Yes.
Second driveway.
The second
Correct.
driveway, the first one will be,
Okay.
remain right in. So
And-
if you're coming from the interstate and that sort of thing, you'll use that one. If you're exiting, you'll use the other one.
Okay. And how close is that the new driveway to Highland Road?
I think, about 140 feet or so?
And so what impact will that have on people trying to get out of Highland Road? Is it Highland Road? Yeah.
Any driveways near an intersection creates a perception issue, plus the Highland people will have a little difficulty looking southbound. So they'll have two things to look at. One is there a car there trying to exit? And the second is just the pure sight distance as it exists today.
But the southbound visibility off Highland was what you already said had issues, wasn't it?
If you're looking south.
Like if you're turning from Highland,
The north, yeah.
you can
From
see
the
down
road.
toward Terrace Court, but you can't really see down to University Parkway from Highland.
From Highland has restricted view, yes.
Will this new driveway have an acceleration lane? When you turn out, will you turn directly onto Roan or?
You'll turn directly.
Okay.
How far down would the center lane, turning lane go? Would it go all the way to Highland, or is it going to just start on further down?
Did he show us that? So obviously a right turn lane in both directions. It'll be a tapered a left turn bay, center turn bay. It'll be tapered back to the road at Highland.
Will it start at Highland, or is it going to be after Highland before it becomes a left turn?
Roughly at Highland, yes.
So is
We've
it
done that
possible?
before.
Is it possible to improve the left turn out of Highland by
No,
the work
there's
we'll be
a-
doing there?
The problem, well, if you cut the bank, and that's what we did look at to try to improve the sight distance, is cut the bank back at Highland, okay? Because it extends out. So that does give us some extra sight distance. But we can't lower the road because there's a huge, I think it's a water line. And so it's as low as it can go. When we built it in the first place, when they were doing Walmart, that was the restriction.
I want to make sure I really understand this to Vice Mayor's question. Will you be able to turn out of Highland left and turn into a turning lane, whereas today you can't?
No. It'll have to, it's gonna be squeezing back into the existing two lanes.
So then there's no way to
They can.
Add that.
They can, but they'll partially be in the other lane or in one of the lanes.
Any way to widen it there to get that where it does have a center lane out by Highland?
Yes. Let me see a picture. Show me a picture. Yeah, that's possible.
I think that would help this whole area they would at least have a place to go and not have as many chances of being hit by someone.
We'll see if the developer will take care of that.
Okay.
If
If we
the
could do that,
developer-
I'd feel a lot
I
better.
would feel a
It's-
lot more comfortable with it
It's hard
also.
enough coming out of Highland even today.
Developer is, but
Back there in the back.
we'll take care of that. We'll put a turn lane in, we'll have to widen out a little bit. I think we'll probably have it sufficient right away.
And remembering this is also a public hearing on second reading, are there other questions for staff before we open the floor for public hearing? Okay, I'll open the floor for public hearing on 4805-22, the South Roan and University Parkway. Anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition, please approach the podium. If you'll give your name and address.
Hi, I'm Mickey Bird. I live on 174 East Highland. I like that you're addressing the left turn, because right now it's a crapshoot. Between, in the mornings, when Mountain View's opening, it's tough to turn left there. In the afternoons, anytime after 4 o'clock, it's really tough to turn left. The road narrows considerably right there. We have no sidewalk access from East Highland to cross over. And there's a bus stop right there. So we have people running for their lives across that street. It's just so narrow right there. So I'm not against the Dollar General. I think that's a good idea. But adding that second drive, just to add and that would add a second commercial building, I'm not sure that's really necessary. Personally, I'd like to see you add another row of townhouses and bring the driveway out to East Highland for the townhouses. We've absorbed one apartment complex already. We have a very wide road with good sidewalks. I think, 8, 10, 12 new townhomes there would be awesome. We have a great neighborhood, huge yards. Traffic's a little quick sometimes, but we have speed bumps. But it's a great neighborhood, and it's a transitioning neighborhood. More and more younger couples are moving in with children, which is really exciting as I'm going the other way. But that left turn right there is such a concern. And so now not only are we going to have to watch for the traffic, we're going to have to watch to see if somebody's coming out of that new driveway and turning right also, and accelerating because somebody's coming through the red light. There's just such a compact area. I don't even think adding a turn lane is going to be the solution, because then we're hoping somebody's not sitting in that turn lane to turn left into Walgreens or has done something. It's just a tight little intersection. And like I said, I would much rather see, instead of a second commercial building, another row of townhouses. I mean, like I said, we have a great neighborhood. My sister-in-law is just opening a physician's office on the other side of Walgreens. That strip center's had a heck of a time keeping tenants. The Blockbuster building stayed empty forever. And then ever since BB&T left, it's been a kind of revolving door there as well. So I'm hoping with my sister opening her office there that's going to help as well. But I can't, I'll have to go out the other direction every time. And I just opened an office downtown. So I like to turn right there. That second driveway really concerns me, just from a safety standpoint. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Bird.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor or opposition? If you'll give your name and address, please.
Benjamin Berry with Berry Engineers, representing the developer. Business address is 63 Broad Street, Cleveland, Tennessee. Thank you for the colored site plan and the video. I think that's very helpful in understanding the situation. This has, we've struggled with this for months, and I think Jenny has had a prime spot in seeing us come to Planning Commission with a developable plan, come back to Planning Commission with a different developable plan, and then our third time was a charm there. So I want to kind of give a little bit of a history of that and the perspective that we have, because this property is set vacant for quite a while, and the main reason is access. And so the questions that we've tried to answer, both with myself, with staff, with the state agencies, it's not should this property be developed, but how can it be developed and be developed in a safely manner. The first spot, can we go to the concept plan? Yeah, that's good. So there's two areas in this site, in this is all one property. There are two areas that this site could be accessed. There's no access to University Parkway, and there is adequate site distance if the driveway was located in this location here. That was the first location that was approved by city staff, but the problem is that it required a reduction in TDOT access control fencing. So if you're familiar with that, when they put in the interchange, they put in access control fencing, and it comes through here and it comes to this angle and stops at this part. The initial feedback from TDOT was we're not going to remove our access control fencing, so please move your driveway to this location. So at this location, there was not enough sight distance for left turns out, as people would come over the hill on South Rowan Street coming from East Highland. There's not enough sight distance to safely make that left turn. So the access at this point was limited to a left. Extend this left turn lane. So left in, but right out. The problem with that configuration is that whatever develops in this parcel, most of which is already currently zoned PB, could be any sort of office, any sort of commercial use within the PB district. Whatever developed on this parcel, all of the exiting traffic would go towards Highland. It would increase the traffic and worsen the intersection for the neighbors coming out of that road, especially since we anticipate the majority of the traffic to come from University Parkway. If you come from University Parkway, the natural assumption is that you want to go back to University Parkway once you're done with your business, with few exceptions. We came back to this location, to Planning Commission, with a right out only. Planning Commission denied that location and asked staff to work with TDOT to see if they would approve eliminating this access control fencing. Again, this is a long story. Thank you for hanging in there with me. But we went to TDOT, we went all the way up to Nashville. They came back and said, no, we're not removing our access control fencing. The second location that's safe to access this property is at the top of the hill. At the top of the hill, you can see both directions for more than adequate distance to make left turns out of this development. So this driveway, by having this full access driveway at this location, not only the Dollar General, which is the immediate development plan, but also whatever tenant here, probably an office, a local insurance broker or something like that is probably the likely user of something in here. But this parcel and the residential parcels could use this safe access point to make their turns, most of which going back to University Parkway, not really, there's some traffic up here that would go turn right and go to East Highland, but not near the volume that if you didn't have that full access point. By giving people a safe full access point, you're allowing them to get back to University Parkway, which reduces the amount of cars that would otherwise have occurred here at East Highland. Also, this piece was something that we'd worked with Preston to come up with. It adds infill development, which you discussed at length, infill residential development in the residential community, but it keeps the traffic off of East Highland, which, as you heard, is a big problem today. And it's a problem that doesn't have an easy fix. I mean, lowering the road is the fix. That's not an easy fix. So as we developed this plan, we were looking for a way that this property can be developed that would produce the safest options for traffic and not make an existing bad situation worse. One last thing to point out. We would be shortening the concrete median that's currently exists, But the idea is to keep the section that is in front of the Walgreens right in, right out. That was something that was important both to the city staff, because if you open that all the way up, it's a right in, right out is going to get ignored, and people are going to make left turns, whether they should or shouldn't do that. So we would be keeping the concrete portion. It extends, I believe, right here. There's some line work here where we had a left turn lane, but I believe the concrete median stops here, so it overlaps this right in, right out, and Walgreens right in, right out to keep that corridor safe.
The developer you represent, are they going to build the townhomes, or that will be?
I represent
Someone
the developer that's going to build the Dollar General and put in the infrastructure for the access points, both access points. I did want to mention two things because of what we're putting in. There will be right-of-way dedication on South Roan Street that takes it from this point and eliminates this notch. So part of our development will dedicate right-of-way on South Roan Street. It also will extend sidewalk because we're going all the way up here. It'll extend sidewalk all the way up to East Highland. This portion of the sidewalk would conceptually be built with the residential portion. So as part of this project, you have decel lanes. You can see the traffic. If you're in East Highland, you can see the traffic from this driveway. You can, if I see somebody turn left here and I want to turn left, I kind of know that it's safe and I kind of follow their lead coming out. But also gives them sidewalk access down to the intersection.
We had talked about extending that center left turn lane all the way to Highland. Would you have any problem with that?
That's something that I can't commit to today. That is a pretty large road widening project. And our goal with this plan was to limit the impact at that location and to keep all of our impact along the frontage that we have.
I know you've worked on this a long time, Mr. Berry, and I think your plan that you've come back with utilizes the space, I think, in some very diverse ways. So thank y'all for doing that and going back and trying to find a solution that is most workable.
Thank you. And that full access driveway location is not arbitrary at all. In fact, I had it 20 feet to the east, and I believe city staff, and we went out, kind of walked, stood, looked both ways, and decided to move it. I mean, even to the minutia of a 20-foot move. So it's really been investigated pretty heavily.
This is a hard property because it's high visibility and poor access, as you've already alluded. I think this is the third or fourth iteration of somebody's attempt to do something with that corner that I've seen serving. I'd be curious to hear you comment to the point I think I heard Mr. Byrd make, fine with the apartments, fine with the Dollar General, concerned about the full turn access, and not so excited about the second commercial building, but maybe receptive to more residential in there. I'd just be curious, what's the thinking? I mean, there's a lot of vacant commercial property within a stone's throw of here, but an apartment stays unrented for how many hours right now? I mean, you could fill those things up twice before the end of the day. What's the rationale behind commercial versus more residential there?
The zoning, really, frankly. Our emphasis and focus has been on the Dollar General and how to get access to the Dollar General that also sets up the rest of the property well for future development, whatever that may be. The idea for the tenant parcel to be determined was zoning and what was across the street. Kind of saw it as sole proprietorship office. I would use this a State Farm office or some sort of like that.
How big a building is that roughly? I don't have a.
I think what's shown is about 4,000 square feet. Now, there is some topo change there as to, how much you could actually grade at that point. It very well could come back as residential and be changed in the future. If it did, the access points wouldn't change. They would be in place. Traffic volumes would likely be similar to a small office use. It would just be at different times of day. So that is certainly within the realm of possibility that at some point there is a buyer that sees a higher and better use. Maybe that's residential for that. So we're not set on that middle parcel being developed exactly how it's shown, except for how it is accessed onto the highway with the decel lanes and that sort of thing. And you mentioned other developments. I wasn't a part of that, but I've heard mentioned, like fast food restaurant was looking at it. The use of a Dollar General and the traffic associated with it compared to a fast food restaurant, I mean, it is a night and day difference. If traffic and access is a problem here, the use that we're proposing is a kind of a best case scenario commercial use. It's lower volume, lower traffic, especially compared to what could be a fast food restaurant at that location.
There are other questions for Mr. Berry? Again, this is on second reading. We're in public hearing, so I'll entertain any questions for Mr. Berry or others that wish to speak in favor or opposition.
I'm Wendy Graham. I live at 1411 Squibb Drive. I live on the other side of Highland, down King Springs area. I travel Highland as one of my main thoroughfares that goes from one side of the town to the other. Like the other gentleman, the two entrances really bug me. I would like to ask that if you do pass it, to require the middle lane, turn lane be on there. Because if I'm coming from Highland and I want to go to the Dollar General, I have to make a left turn right quick, and if there's not a turn lane, another left turn right quick at the full access point. And that's going to either cause an accident, it's going to, because if you leave it as it is on the right turn in, you can't turn there. Although there's going to be people that's going to, because there's so many people that come out of Walmart or Walgreens and go down just a little bit, and then they cut up around that median. That's what they do. And coming out of Highland, going left, you always squeal a tire. I don't know if you've noticed that, whether it's wet or whether it's not, because you're trying to hurry, because you really only have one car length to see who's coming over that hill. So would I like to see the embankment cut into? Absolutely. I would like to see all residential on the other part instead of commercial. I'm not against it. I would, if it's going to be residential, it wouldn't hurt to have the residential access coming onto Highland Road and just the commercial Dollar General going on. That be the case, if it connected, I could come off Highland, cut through, and go to the Dollar General. Otherwise, like I said, without a turn lane, you're really putting yourself at risk trying to go there. And I'm like any other, especially mom in that area. Yeah, we have last minute runs to the Dollar General all the time. So it may not be as high traffic as a fast food place, but it is a Dollar General. People, and especially in that area, go a lot. Or they wouldn't be coming here. I mean, that's just a given. But I would ask that you definitely put in that there is a turn lane there for sure. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor or opposition? Questions for staff?
Mayor Wise.
I'm not staff.
Yes, you are.
Go ahead.
I'm kidding. The question I have, in the case that we approve this ordinance on second reading, I guess it goes to third automatically. But what can we do to request a middle lane? an embankment to be cut into to increase the safety of that area, because it can be problematic at times. I mean, we've all traveled it, but those are two concerns or two things that I believe could really add value and support for this reading.
I think we just ask city manager to come back with a proposal on what that would
I'm sorry, I never
entail.
closed public hearing.
Oh, I'm
Sorry about that.
Is it okay? Can I close? Do we need to reopen it? We're gonna close it now. We're really done. Okay. So unless we leave that hanging open, go ahead.
So if we could get a proposal on what that would require, what the cost of it would be, and that we can consider that, then right now, we don't know what it would be. We all, I think up here it's the right thing to do, so.
But I was able to meet with the applicant, the property owner, and we spent quite a bit of time talking about the property, and he answered a lot of questions. So I was grateful for that opportunity. And for anybody else in the public, if you feel inclined to reach out, do reach out. You don't have to wait till the commission meeting, so.
Thank you.
Can you reopen?
Okay, I'm gonna reopen public hearing. No. Just trying to stay ahead of myself.
Brian Sanjit, good evening, Commissioners. Brian Sanjit, 2266 Sawyers Pond. Ben did a great job explaining it. I just feel like I maybe need to say a few words in favor. I've been working on this project for quite a few years. We've had different, as you've heard, different scenarios to go there. One would have been a fast food. One was a CVS. CVS was approved, and their site plan was probably more difficult than this. That I'm surprised that, based on what we're talking about this evening, this is by far a much better plan, because CVS also had the right in and the right out, and then they had the full access moved a little further down. But with that said, they pulled out at the last minute and not us. It would have been great, if we'd had, anything goes on that property is good, I think, for our community. Other than if it is going to cause accidents, because we definitely don't want any of that to happen. But this extra, I will say this too, Dollar General has gone out of their way in many circumstances to try to make this happen. I mean, I can't say too much, we'll lose negotiation power, when you're working with these guys. They're just doing a phenomenal job. They're working on property that they won't even own to make this access work. So they're improving, they're already improving property they don't own, and then to continue to ask them to do more and more things, we might, I'd hate to see it go away. But if I'm coming out on East Highland and I'm looking up at that access, that is actually, to me, a huge benefit, because all I have to do is look up the hill, and if that guy's not going, I'm not going. Before, I didn't have any way of telling whether I can go or not. So if I'm on East Highland, there's access there. And Ben alluded to it, but I'm trying to make it a stronger point. But if those guys are going to turn right, I'm not going anywhere. If they're going to go left, I'm going to follow them, and I'm going to go left too, as long as I know I'm clear down the hill. So while this road can be a lot better if there's a center lane, it's already going to be improved by just adding that, so that I have eyes up the hill when I'm turning in and out. That's the way I see it. So I just wanted to add that.
Now we're closed. Okay. Commissioner, are there other questions? Are you ready to take action on second reading?
I will move for approval just to get to third reading and get information back.
So we have a motion to approve. Is there a second? And we are asking staff to come back specifically with comment on the turn lane component, or that center lane. Okay.
And the cutting into the embankment, if that's
Increase the
a
visual,
possibility.
if we can do that.
They said they were doing that already.
I think they said there's a water line in the way.
They can't go too far, but we'll do something.
Okay, so if there's not objection, we're calling the roll on approving its second reading.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Your next order of business is the third reading of ordinance to rezone 109 Memory Garden Road from R01 district to B4 district. Peyton?
Good evening, Commissioners. This is third and final reading, and there have been no updates
I
to
need a
this.
motion on third reading, no changes since first and second.
Move for approval.
We have a
Second.
motion and a
Second.
second
Third.
and a third. All right, well, if there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you. The next order of business is the consideration of a conceptual plan amendment located on 120 acres of undeveloped tract off Rockingham Road for a subdivision known as Yorkshire subdivision.
Good evening. So a concept plan amendment is a little bit different than what we have talked about before with a rezoning ordinance. So this has already had an ordinance, and what the developer would like to do is to change it just a little bit. So we're not necessarily changing the zoning or the zoning of it. It is really just changing aspects of the plan. And because of that, it needs to come back for approvals of the respective planning commission and then city commission decision. So what they're asking for is for 302 single-family homes. Previously, this had been a combination of single-family and townhomes, and we'll kind of go through some of that history. One of the things I will tell you that I love about planning is that land has a story, and this one has a story. So settle in. When this was annexed in 2002, it was decided that the RP2 zoning district was appropriate. It was within the urban growth area, and we could serve the area. And when we did that, we committed to, I'm going to kind of get to it, but we committed to the state of the road of Rockingham Road, because it's partially in the county, the part that's in the city on this end of Rockingham Road. There is more part that's in the city on the other end of Rockingham Road. Goes up to Rockingham Meadows. And it was considered a contiguous annexation at that point because Rockingham Meadows was annexed in May. This came in November. So the original plan with an RP2 had to have a concept plan, but it was called a generalized plan at that point in time. And this kind of show you in concept where they were thinking about putting some of their development and how they were particularly doing this. And they're chugging along through. In 2005, they get approved for a preliminary plat because that's the next phase of any development of this magnitude. And 2008 rolls around and they haven't started their development, so they come back before the Planning Commission and say, hey, we would like for our vesting to be extended. And so they do that, but that vesting goes away in 2011 because nothing has really occurred out there. It's vacant land. So what that essentially means is that whatever rules have changed between 2011 and 2021 now would apply. So they've submitted a plan, and we're going to kind of go through it just a little bit because this is really what your action is about, is what their changes are. So one of them being going from the combination of townhomes to single family. The other is, they're including, because they had their street detail, they're including their street detail of they're providing 12-foot wide lanes, 50 feet of right-of-way, a very clear site data table. They are providing open space to meet the open space requirement, and that's where this is in green. They're providing 2 connections. This is one less than what they provided originally. There was originally one more that was right here. Through engineering, they're okay with the 2. This one right here, as this property develops, which is in the county, there is a potential for that to go over to Boring Chapel. And so that's kind of one of the benefits with that one. In the discussion, I'm just going to go through. In the discussion in 2002, the neighborhood here, whose name I can never remember, it's they're going to tell it to me, but this Heritage Hills it is. It always escapes me. They in that annexation and in that rezoning, a lot of opposition to connecting into this neighborhood, which was in the county. This one was in the city, and so there was some discussion in the neighborhood meeting and in the planning commission because we didn't know how these would come about, of whether this would be needed or not needed. And because there are 2 connections here, they're not needed. So this one will still remain not connected. Okay, we're moving on. We have the decel lanes on Rockingham Road. There are 2 entrances on Rockingham Road and a 3rd way to get to Rockingham Road through Rockingham Meadows Lane. Then we have, because regulations have changed, they will be providing stormwater management, which would not have happened if it had developed in 2011. And then they've got these 2 internal connections, which are really important for fire safety. As you've adopted some fire codes that have changed, there are some additions to making sure that that emergency services can get where they need to go quickly. And lastly, I'm just going to point out that this is kind of an area that's ambiguous. It's open space and stormwater management. It needs a little clarification, but in a concept plan, it's fine. So that's the site plan in general. One of the concerns that staff always looks at in recent times, I would say, is how the new streets, what are the streets that we are taking on, what are they going to look like? How is that going to function? So just to kind of give you an idea of trying to compare as best I can, apples to apples. RP in a single family setting has, whether it's RP2 or RP3, can have a similar makeup. So an example of a street section that would be comparable would be Devonshire Avenue, which is in Cardinal Forest. And that's shown here in a plan view, and then I took a picture this afternoon. Another one, I believe this is Villages at Hunters, something or other. Hunter's Lake. There's a lake to it. And I've got a couple of those, but that's an RP3. And this has some varying to it. So there's some 50-foot wide, some a little smaller, because sidewalk is only on one side of the street. But just to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. The other one that is also in that vein is Willow Springs, and that's under construction. So some of it is really hard. Like if you drive out there, it's going to feel much tighter than it will likely when it finishes, just because of the construction traffic. But the neighbors are already feeling some concerns there because they've put up their own no parking signs. But that's the Willow. It's the Wanderlust would be the 50-foot if you were going to kind of take a look at that. The other concerns that we've heard are about the condition of Rockingham Road, because it is a county, at this point is a county road, kind of paved where the gravel was, ditches, that kind of thing. And just to show you where those entrances and what they look like, kind of gives you an idea with that. There is also a video of coming out of what Rockingham kind of looks like on a midday. This is not peak times, but just midday. So that's what the intersection at 36 looks like. I'm showing this because we always show this, but it already is residential. It's vacant at this point in time. These are some of the concerns that the neighborhood, one of the reasons that I don't go into too much is because usually there's someone here that can usually speak better for themselves than I can speak for them. Staff recommends approval of this because what they're doing is really just changing from single family from the 2 types to just single family. They're removing a connection to a street stub to the west. And so that is where we would recommend approval of the request.
Can I ask a clarifying series of questions, just
Yes.
so I'm clear? What we're being asked to do is approve a new concept plan. When you talk about the old concept plan and the loss of vesting, it's because in 05 or 6 or whenever it was, everybody agreed this is what's going to happen. And you have some amount of time before the milk expires. And then when it finally, it's gone.
Right.
Now, you still have the right to do what you asked for. You just have to meet a series of new requirements.
Right.
Which is those interconnectivities through the green space for fire and more stormwater, correct?
Correct.
And then they have come back, and instead of a mix of multifamily townhomes and single family, straight up single family, and the density, I think was 290 something.
It's 2.5 units an acre, so it's under the 3.4.
Well, but I'm just
Yeah.
trying to compare what's already
Oh,
been
yeah.
approved. It was like
290,
290.
298 unit, 296, 98,
And
somewhere
what
in
they're
there.
asking for now is 300 and.
Two.
So 6 or 4, 6, let's call it a half a dozen different. And you've lost one access point.
Yes, a future potential connection.
Okay,
I do have something to add that I did not say in my initial presentation.
okay.
And that is that when this was annexed, the need for a school bus was identified. That need still exists. This will need a full-length 40-foot bus and driver. So that is something that the city committed to 20 years ago.
But again, that really isn't part of what, I mean, that's kind of
I just want you to-
incidentally noteworthy, but we can't tell them they can't build 295 units on this property.
Correct.
Okay. So the question is not whether it's 0 or 302. The question is whether it's 295 or whatever it was and 302. Is that a fair characterization?
It's a fair characterization on the density, yes.
And so whether that needs a bus or not, I mean, that check's been written. The fact that it's outstanding on our account really is just incidental, correct?
I just want to make sure that you're aware of it.
Right.
Part of the plan of services.
Right, no,
Yeah.
we've agreed to do
You've agreed
that.
you've agreed to
Okay.
do it, and this plan has just basically sat for 20 years. So there are some things of dusting off the plan that have caused a bit of a shakeup because it's suddenly unexpected.
Okay.
And the stormwater, they have to do now, they wouldn't have had to do 20 years
Correct.
ago.
So that is, in a land development setting, that is a benefit in our.
Go back to the slide that has the development kind of pulled away in the beginning.
With the green color. and-
Keep going. I don't care.
That one?
Right. Okay. This whole thing's in the city, right?
It is.
That's my question. On the outskirts, I think you pointed to a part that said a future development may occur, but it's in the county only.
Let's go back to, let me go back to the big over map, because I think that helps.
This is all county. So if that connection that's right here, if this were developed, should this ever be developed, and there in the next 50 years there could be a chance that it is developed, that this sets up so that there is potential. We want to make sure that what we're doing now sets up for future connectivity, because there's usually more people than less people. And especially in our city, we tend to get more people versus less people.
But this area would have city services, water, sewer,
This-
all the
yes.
things we provide.
Anything in these yellow and green have city services. Outside of that, no.
Thank you.
I wanted to make sure we've answered the question around what's already allowed. And I think, Mayor Wise, you asked that
good,
question. Preston, if you could share what you shared with me about what is really at question and what they're allowed to do at this point, even without this action on the commission's part.
Sure, thank you, ma'am. Yes, I think Whitney did a fantastic job with her presentation. There was just a lot of information to absorb, and these concept plans can be difficult to understand because it's not an ordinance. You're not hearing this 3 different times, so we understand that. But the entitlements on this land, meaning the rights that they have to build this subdivision, were granted to them in 2002 with the annexation. And so there were really 3 actions you took back in 2002. 1, to annex it. 2, to apply a zoning district. And 3, to apply that generalized plan. Those 3 things became permanently married to one another and in effect, in perpetuity in 2002. So here we are 20 years later. The rights to do that development remain intact. So that's important to note, that the rights to do that subdivision with the zoning in place remains intact. They are simply asking to revise the plan, so to speak. And when I say so to speak, they're tweaking it from townhomes to all single-family, and then revising the connection points. But because this approval is 20 years old, it feels like we're having this conversation anew, but we're not. All of the rights remain intact. And so, for example, when the school bus got brought up, Eldonna called me yesterday and said, "Preston, help me understand what's going on with this subdivision out here. I am completely booked up on school buses in the north part of the city. I don't have a 40-foot school bus for here." And I said, "Eldonna, I certainly understand. We'll be glad to share this information with the city manager and with the commission. But this was a commitment that the city made in 2002. Sometimes, because of market conditions, these things happen where the approval is gained, and then because of whatever, a number of different factors, the development doesn't happen. And so here we are, 20 years later, having this conversation, but the entitlements and the rights to do this property remain intact. They are simply asking to tweak the plan." Does that help?
Thank you, Preston.
Yeah, and the only thing that the loss of vesting means is that they have to satisfy presumably more stringent standards on things like fire and storm water.
Bingo.
Okay.
And it costs a lot more
Thank you,
today
Preston.
than.
And I
for
bet you the school bus isn't 65 grand anymore.
Yeah, it's 250,000 today, so.
This was not noticed for a public hearing, but I sense that there are folks that might wish to speak. And so at my discretion, I'll open the floor to public comment. I will also point out that it is 8:30 almost. And so we did not impose time limits on the original comments, but I would ask, I think most people can effectively make their point in 3 minutes. And so anybody wishing to address, Commissioner Brock, would you be our official timekeeper? And maybe when they're at their 2.5 minutes, if you'll just raise your hand so that you at least know your time is waning. Are there people wishing to speak for or against the concept plan? And again, as you prepare to make your remarks, recognize that we're not talking about 0 to 300. We're not talking about whether it's developed or not. What we're talking about is some of the subtleties of that plan, and it may be helpful. Peyton or Whitney, could somebody put the slide up? I would imagine it's most helpful to see the slide that shows the footprint of the subdivision that showed those cut-throughs. I liked it better in color, personally. There you go. That's getting
Or we're
better.
not talking about rezoning either.
Yeah,
That's
we're not
important.
talking about rezoning. This would still be a PB that, or a,
RPP.
I'm sorry, no, it's RP.
RP2.
RP2, thank you. So I'll open opportunity for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak to those issues, and then, like I said, Commissioner Brock has agreed to be our timekeeper, and if you'll just watch her for kind of a 30-second warning.
Hi, my name is Sarah Howell. I live at 135 Hazelwood. And I just want to verify that for sure they are not going to go through Heritage Hills. Can we verify?
Well, the site plan.
Positively, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what we're voting on is this,
For it
right?
not to come through Heritage
The only
Hills,
two
right?
places that it
We're
cuts.
just-
Two access
Yeah.
points there and there.
So we're positive. Okay.
Yes, we're positive.
We're good. Thanks.
That was quick, only 30 seconds on that.
Yeah, okay, very quick. Anyone else wishing? You'll give your name and address, please.
My name's Melanie Aldridge, and I live at 274 Rockingham Meadows Drive. I'm the house at the end of the development where the stub exists, right in front of the house. And I had a longer thing planned, but I'll condense it down to just a few points. The main one being the development of 300-plus homes right next to a subdivision that has approximately 25. And those, with that cut through, the additional traffic that 300-plus homes could potentially bring through the neighborhood that could go to 600 cars. So that's a concern of ours. Another is Highway 36, and turning left onto or out of Rockingham Meadows Road is a huge concern with that number of cars that would be increased on Rockingham. Rockingham itself, the narrowness, it's curvy. If you put a bus on that road, there's no way a car and a bus, one of the cars is going to go off into the shoulder, and there's not really a shoulder in many parts of Rockingham. So that's another one of our concerns. Opening the stub from Rockingham Meadows, with the concept plan, there are approximately 80 homes in close proximity to that opening that could potentially come through the neighborhood. The 600 wouldn't, they'd probably use, the majority go through the other two entrances, but 80 cars is 160 coming through the neighborhood. And we do understand the need for fire and emergency coming through that entrance, but they're not going to come through our neighborhood at any amount of speed because we got two roundabouts and the roadways around the roundabouts are very narrow. So whether or not they would use them would be a question. The size of the proposed lots are approximately 10,000 square feet smaller than the smallest lot in our neighborhood. So that's a significant difference. 2 to 3 houses for every one lot backing up to it, directly back to it. In addition, the green space, I see there's some apparently along the back. All the other green space is under power lines, so I don't know how functional that would be. But we do understand the goal of the investor is to make the most profit for investment. The developer doesn't necessarily live here and is not invested in the community. The concept plan should complement our neighborhood, and we feel that it does detract from it mainly due to the large number of homes that are proposed. And we hope that the goal is not tax revenue, but to find ways to maintain and improve the quality of the living space that the current residents have. So we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Aldridge.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Donald Mitchell, and I live at 258 Rockingham Meadows Drive. And my concern with the concept plan is the safety part of it. It's coming out of Rockingham Meadows Drive, and I have to turn left. You're going to have roughly, how many cars did you say? 80 coming through our neighborhood. That's going to have to turn left. There's a hill to the left right there. The speed limit sign right there in the city says it's 25 miles an hour, and they come down off that hill at 40 miles an hour. And sometimes, and that's several times when I've pulled out, I've had to gun it just to get through there so I won't get hit in the side. So my concern with this is the safety part of it. Then you got all those other cars that's going to be coming down from the two exits from this subdivision on down Rockingham Road, which Rockingham Roads is not wide anyway, to be honest with you. So you got all those cars going to come up. So I've got to try to turn left sometime for that. So my concern is the safety part of it. There's one other safety part of it is when there's an accident on 26, 36 is where everybody's coming from Kingsport and Johnson City, and you cannot get right, left, or whatever. So there's another safety concern right there. So that's my safety concern with this concept plan right here, is all the traffic that we're going to have that could potentially have some deaths, either on coming out of Rockingham Meadows Drive to turn left or trying to get out on 36, the way people drive anymore. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Robert Thomas with Thomas Construction, 202 Crestwood Drive. I'm here to speak in favor. We're proposing the development through the neighborhood process. I think most people here were concerned about the existing subdivision, and I think that's been addressed. The entrance into Rockingham Meadows, which is this one, was not initially proposed. Through staff comments, it's been added to it. I can't say I disagree with the two people that live right there. Rockingham Meadows is challenging to get out of. I don't foresee much traffic going that way just due to that fact. Now, Rockingham Road, for the entire frontage of this development, the county's requiring it to be widened. Since it is a county road, it'll go to 12-foot lanes, and I believe it's an 8-foot shoulder, if I remember right from comments, that'll be repaved. So I think it's a good development. It's very similar to what was there before. We've just taken it to single family, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Has the county targeted a particular time to widen this road?
It will be done in the first phase of the development.
Okay. Rockingham, are you talking about Rockingham?
Yes, we will be doing it.
Oh, okay.
As part of the county's requirement to us. Just along from this lower detention pond, this mouse is not easy. Right in here, it will be improved to right there.
That's Rockingham?
Yes,
Will be
Rockingham
improved
Road.
right there.
Yes, it will be improved.
Is all of Rockingham in the county?
No.
No, okay.
I believe just below where it's Rockingham Meadows comes in, I believe it's a city road.
Yeah, Rockingham Meadows South is in the city, and then on the other end of Rockingham Road from Will Lane over is also in the city.
So are there questions for Mr. Thomas?
What's your timeline to begin this project?
Ideally, within the next 60 days. And it's probably a 36-month project.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
My name is Penny Thayer, and I live in the Heritage Hills subdivision. The only thing I haven't heard brought up is the lake is back up, and there is a lot of boat traffic on that Rockingham Road. And when the marinas close in the evenings at midnight, you will see a lot of traffic both at Boring Chapel and Rockingham. And the stoplight that was put in at Oak Grove, there's not another one until you get to Zach's. And those people do not observe the speed limit through there. So my question is, we've got the lake back up, you've got those lake homes, that's developing back in there. There's going to be a lot more boat traffic, and you're adding another 600 cars to that road. That's the only thing I hadn't heard anybody say.
Thank you.
My name is Tom McKee. I live at 159 Will Lane Road in Johnson City, Tennessee, in the city limits of Johnson City, off of Rockingham Boat Dock Road. My history is I spent 12 years on the city commission here, and my mother passed away while I was on the commission, and I ended up with a divorce, and I ended up spending time in the city limits living with my father. And as soon as I got off the city commission, I moved out to Rockingham Road, where I have lived since that time. That's in 1991 is when I got off, okay. And I'm 81 years old, almost 82. I still live out there. But the reason, one thing I did do when I got off the city commission is I asked to have that area annexed. And the reason I did is because at that point in time, the city of some individuals in the gray area were actually trying to incorporate gray. And so I knew good and well I wasn't going to have any sewer or services in the town of Gray. So I had that annexed out there. I did with my neighbors. And that's why that road is in the city limits. And we have sewer. It took me 11 years to get it, but we do not contribute to any of the problems as far as the lake is concerned. So I'm very proud of what we've done as a group. Now, as far as my friend, Mr. Thomas, is concerned, I worked with him and his father on many occasions, so they're close personal friends. And I know the quality of the work that they did. And I sat up here with you, like you all did for those 12 years, and I knew that if Thomas Construction Company was involved in any project, it was going to be very well done. And I did take time today to go out to see the project that they have on the Holton Home project out on Cliff Drive. Not that they asked that I do that. I did it on my own because I simply wanted to see what the situation was. And to be quite frank with you, I was impressed with the quality of the work and the fact that you had different styles and stuff like that as far as the homes are concerned. So I think it will be a good development for our area. I know the Thomas part will be excellent. As far as Horton Homes are concerned, I really don't know that much about that, but I did speak to one of the residents out there, and he was very positive about what he had gotten for his money. He felt like it was a good project. Now, my concern is the same as everybody else's. I think with that density of 320 units, that's an awful lot of traffic that's going to be going out on Rockingham Road. But like I should know whether or not there's a principle of law called latches, which means if you don't do something during a certain period of time, it expires. And in this case, evidently, your attorneys have said that their previous rezoning still applies and is still active. If that's true, fine. But I think basically what they're asking to do now is appropriate. But this is going to put a burden on the part of the city to widen that road. And eventually, you're probably going to have a request or you have to consider whether or not you have an annexation for the rest of that road out there. And that road, and the houses on that road, there was no zoning or anything like that when they were built. It was just country houses and nice, really good people, but all that. But you're liable to have some, going to have to look for that for the future.
Got to call your time now.
Okay. The federal judge used to have a fellow that'd come up behind me and set me down. But anyway, I just think that you ought to be really aware of what's going to happen out here. This guy over here, we got hired by the city at the same time. I can't figure out why he still has hair and I don't.
Thank you, Mr. McKee. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to this item on our agenda? If not, we'll close the public hearing and turn to the commission. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on one point, because there was something in the developer's comments. His original plan to us did not include this connection, but that connection, back, too far. A similar connection, it may not be in that exact location, has been in this concept plan since its inception. So I just want to make sure that even though that their development was the one that came through first, that it was the intention that they connect.
Thank you.
I just have a question about our capital plan. Is Rockingham Road anywhere in our capital plan for improvement?
The pace of development's going to affect the capital plan, so annually we look at capital plans to see if we need to adjust. It's the pace. In this particular case, it may feel like the housing is getting ahead of the transportation. Other cases, the opposite effect. But we know it's going urban, so.
Other questions?
Yeah, for the people who are here, we understand why you're here and we're with you. But this was done a long time ago. We're getting the end of it. We get the brunt of what we get to do next. So we've been discussing this, and that many people moving in out there is going to increase traffic. There's no doubt and it's probably more than 600 cars, because you might not make just one trip out and back in a day. But we ought to be able to do something about that road to make that road better, with 300 more people buying land and tax money and those kind of things, to make sure that that road is safe going up and down. Now, when the interstate closes and you have all those people out on Rome Street, that's a whole different story, and I don't know what to do about that anyway, because it's bad when that happens. You go back home. So, anyway, but it's not, we don't get to choose a whole lot with what's going on. We're gonna do what we can to make it safe, because you're our citizens, and they're gonna be our citizens that are living in this neighborhood. So, anyway, I move for
We have a
approval.
motion to approve.
As long as we do that road, I think we're good.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the concept plan. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, I want to agree with Vice Mayor. We absolutely have to look into some of these rural roads where we're having a lot of development. This reminds me a lot of Carroll Creek, because we have so many subdivisions very similar to this. And so I would concur that we need to take a really hard look at it.
Any more?
A motion and a second. If there's nothing further, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you. Concludes the meeting.
If there's nothing further, the meeting will adjourn.